high achievers, they do a lot of listening, because when they listen intently, they're going to learn a lot of stuff and be able to make the necessary changes. So think about this. I know, but I do not feel. So that's me. My communication is dispassionate. It's not passionate. I know, but I do not do. Then my communication is only a theory. It has no relevance. Or I know, but not know. Then my communication is unbounded. Or I feel, but do not know, and my communication is hypocritical. Or I do, but do not know, my communication is presumptuous. And I do, but I do not feel, my communication is just mechanical. Those are things that you always have to think about, how you're coming across, how you're being perceived. Don't be mechanical. Don't be presumptuous. Don't be hypocritical. Don't just speak with theory, and make sure you're passionate and you're not dispassionate. What people really want to see from you when you engage them and you connect with them, they want to see your conviction. Do you really believe what you're telling them? Are you behind it? Do you support it? They want to see your example. They want to see your actions. I had a teacher tell me this once when I was in school, that an average teacher just tells people. A good teacher will take the time to explain things, but a great teacher will demonstrate to you. And think about that. If you're the leader and you're supposed to be developing your people, where do you fall? Are you just telling them what to do? Are you explaining it? Or are you actually demonstrating it? So now if we want to put up the communication wheel, I want to walk through this here. If Jose or whoever can put that up.
Yes, Troy, sorry.
That's okay. While you're working on that, I talked earlier about making sure that, people want to feel.
Mm-hmm.
And so that you have to have confidence in them, and you have to show your appreciation for them. But if you can put up the leadership wheel.
¿Nos ponen por favor en la imagen? Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is something that I came up with several years ago, and I kind of want to walk over it with you. And I have a picture in the background, so I'm going to use that as an example to help you remember this process. The communication wheel starts at the top, and we're just going to work clockwise through the communication wheel. And then the example I'm going to give you is, I am telling an employee to clean the floor. Well, the first spoke on this communication wheel is to clearly communicate your expectations. So if I ask the employee before I leave, or before I'm going to leave the room, and I say, I need you to clean this floor for me. And I come back and the floor is not clean. Whose fault is it? It's my fault, because I didn't clearly communicate the expectations. So what happens if I tell them, I need you to clean the floor, I need you to sweep the floor and mop the floor, and I come back and it's still not to my expectations? Whose fault is it? It's still my fault, because I didn't really clearly communicate my expectations. I didn't tell them, what I need you to do is I need you to get the broom, the mop, the pan, all this stuff, and I need you to sweep all the floors. And then in between the door jambs, I need you to sweep that out, because there's a lot of built up debris. And then once you're done with that, I need you to empty that, make sure that there's nothing on the ground. Then I want you to get a clean mop, use a clean mop, mop the floor, right? You're going to explain everything clearly and communicate all of your expectations. So now let's say I do that with this example. And the next thing on there is I need to make sure they have the knowledge and skills. Does this person know how to sweep the floor? Do they know how to clean it up? Do they know where to put the trash? Do they know how to get the mop and the mop bucket and to put whatever detergent or soap in the water, or maybe nothing in the water? Do they know how to mop? Do they know how to wring the mop? Do they know how to make sure that everything's being done right? Do they know how to do the job? And this is a silly example with cleaning the floor, but apply that to whatever task you have in the organization for someone. Do they know how to work the software equipment? Do they know how to do this? And so if they know how to do all that, then do they have all the tools and the equipment? If I told you I need you to mop the floor, clean the floor, and I didn't give you a dustpan, and you swept up all the debris, but you didn't have a dustpan to put the dust in, what are you gonna do? Just leave it on a pile? I failed as a leader to provide the right tools. Or what happens if you needed gloves for this particular task, or some safety material, or you needed some particular data? So you need to make sure that that person has all the proper tools and all the equipment in order to be able to do the job. Then the next thing you need to make sure is what I call removing obstacles, or removing their excuses. You want to eliminate any excuse that could prohibit this employee from getting that task done, that you clearly communicated your expectations, you ensured that they had the knowledge and skills to do it, and the proper tools and equipment. Now, removing obstacles could be you ask them to clean the floor, and then an hour later you come back and say, and I need you to do this, and I need you to do that, and I need you to do that, or there's interruptions. Well, when those obstacles are in the way, and you know that they're there and you didn't remove them, and the employee does not get the task done in the right amount of time and to your expectations, again, it's not their fault, it's your fault because you didn't remove the obstacles. But let's say all of those things so far around this wheel are going very well. Then the next thing is to provide feedback to them. So they start cleaning the floor, you need to go back and check up on them. Oh man, this is great. You're doing a great job. Oh man, you're fast. I didn't realize that you were this fast. Or conversely, hey, what are you doing? I asked you to get started an hour ago and nothing's been done. Do you understand what I told you to do? And then you need to kind of do a sanity check and say, did I clearly communicate? Did I make sure they have the knowledge, skills, the proper tools, remove obstacles, and feedback? Now, the very last thing, and I put the box in red, is its consequences. If you look at this wheel of communication, the communication wheel really, everything in green falls on the leader. And I think too many times leaders fail to give clear communication and expectation. I think that happens a lot. And if you had to really think to yourself of tasks that you gave to your team or to someone else and the job didn't get done right, and you did a root cause analysis back, you'd probably realize that you could have done a better job explaining it. You could have done a better job going over your expectations and being very clear. So as we look at this, this is really a communication wheel, a tool that you can use to implement, and it's the thought process that is important. I have had lots of experiences with people that have come to me and said, this person didn't do this person didn't do this manager failed to do this in the department, and they didn't hit these results. I don't ask them any other question than, what'd you tell them in the beginning? I start at the beginning. What did you explain to them? I sent them an email. Oh, let me see the email. Oh, the email said just clean the floor. Okay. Well, clearly that doesn't tell me anything. And if they went by the floor and just picked up 2 pieces of paper that fell on the floor, to them, that's cleaning the floor. In their mind, they did exactly what you told them to do. There was 2 pieces of paper on the floor. They picked it up. They didn't know you wanted to sweep, mop, do everything else, get a toothbrush and get in the door jams. So this whole concept is really just, it's so basic, but so important to make sure you do. And when you're communicating too, make sure that you put the person who is receiving the information on the other end. You need to make sure you can step into their shoes. Do they understand it? Are you speaking their language? Are you communicating with them and connecting with them on a level that they understand? Do they respect you? Do they have gratitude? Do you feel gratitude toward them? And do they know that you have gratitude toward them for doing the job? You know, are you really engaged and caring to make sure that this person is successful in getting the job done? So that's the communication wheel. Now, as far as examples, I know from a personal experience, you know, when I first became a leader early in my 20s, I told people what to do, and the job didn't get done. And I had to realize that it was my communication. It was not, I didn't do a good job on clearly communicating my expectations and what I thought. So I challenge all of you to really, you can, you know, write this down, communication wheel, and go back to your leadership and your teams and say, look, when we're talking about issuing a consequence to people, before we issue a consequence, I'm going to challenge you and say, what'd you tell them at the beginning? What was your expectations? How did you communicate it? Did you make sure they had the skills and knowledge? No. Did you hire the right person for the job? No. Did you provide the right tools and equipment? No. Well, it's not their fault they didn't get it done. That's really your fault. And take ownership in your role as a leader to make sure that you communicate clearly to get everything done, putting the person first and making them the most important thing. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Jose.
Yes, can you hear me there?
I can.
Okay, so we're gonna go to the Q&A part. So if you have questions about this topic, it will be great to have them now. So leaders, do you have questions about this? Okay, so they are writing the questions. So while they do this, I'm gonna go to explain again what I understood of the communication wheel, right? So first we need to clearly communicate expectations. This is very important to specify to our employee or to our peer or to our boss, what do we need specifically, you know, to be very, very exact with that instruction. That's the first part. The second part is to ensure that they have the knowledge and the skills, right? So if we ask for something, but they don't have the skills or they don't have this knowledge, they won't be able to, to make it happen. Then the third part is to guarantee that they have the proper tools and equipment. They, as I just said in the example before, in the previous module, that they are asking for something, but they don't bring and they don't give the tools to that person. So that's very important to guarantee that they do have these proper tools and equipment. Then the next step is to remove obstacles, or as Troy says, the excuses. So we need to be very, as leaders, we need to guarantee that they don't have any excuse to make that thing that we are asking them to do. And then to give feedback. This is super important because we're talking about communication. And then obviously to have the consequences, good consequences or bad consequences of this communication wheel. So that's what I understood. Troy, is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. I think that people sometimes will go through 3 or 4 processes around that wheel, and then they keep starting over. And they scratch their head against the wall. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? The job's not getting done.
Yeah.
And they haven't really root cause analysis, like really why. And they have to take ownership and figure out that it's probably themselves that didn't communicate it right. Yeah.
And sometimes we as leaders, we are not clear with the person, right? So they don't understand what we are expecting from them. And if we are not that specific with them, they are not gonna do the thing that we are asking to do. So I don't know if we are already, you already have the questions, please. Yes, Ale.
Okay, we have from Group A. What if the situation is that you have to deliver reports on time and you have no options to negotiate dates? You can give options on how to get tasks done on time, but people refuse to make this work. What else can I do as a leader?
Well, I would find out, going back to the why, why are they not getting it done? There could be a very good reason that they don't have enough time to get these reports done. Maybe they've got too many things on their plate. They've got too many different tasks that they're unable to focus or get these things done. Maybe they have too many interruptions. So I would challenge you to go back and get the people together and say, hey, why are we not able to get this done? Is there something that I can do to help you do that? And ask them. Maybe they're busy. And if they say they're not busy, then it's a question of, well, you need to get it done. Do they have the technical skills? Do they have the knowledge? Are they able to do it? Do they have the data resources? And if not, then it's more of a will issue, and you probably need to move to the consequence part.
Yeah. Okay. So next question, please.
Okay, so I'm just trying to choose the
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 question.
next question.
Okay.
So, okay, so what can we do when all the steps follow, like when we follow all the steps and even though the results is incomplete?
So if you go through the communication wheel
Yeah.
and you know that as a leader you did everything correct on there, then you move to consequence. You have to hold the person accountable.
Yeah. Okay, very clear. So next question, please.
Okay, how to detail expectations without making them feel bad or see yourselves too demanding?
That's understanding your employees. That's understanding your audience. And if you're making them feel bad, you got to figure out, how are you coming across? What are you saying? Change your tone, change your approach, change your communication to fit them, to meet them where they're at, and try to understand them better. If you do that, then they should be able to receive the information better and not feel the way they're feeling.
Great. So let's continue with questions, please.
Okay. From the group B, how should communication be when an activity was not carried out in the specific way and we do not want to demotivate the collaborator?
Say that one more time.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah. How communication should be when an activity was not carried out in the specific way and we do not want to demotivate the collaborator?
It depends on what result they ended up with. So I think the answer would be twofold. If they ended up with the right result, then you can just talk through and say, hey, you got the right result and you did it a different way. Can you explain why you did it that way? Because that's very interesting, because we set out instructions to do it this way, thinking it was going to be the best way to do it, but you got it done, but doing it a different way. I'd like to know why. So that could be one, just communication with that. But if they didn't get the result done, then you kind of need to go back and say, I gave you the communication and the details, instructions to do it this way so that you would get it done. And why did you choose to go that route? Because that caused you to do this, this, and this, and it caused you not to get the project done. You still have to have that conversation, unfortunately, and you can't worry about their... Still there?
Yeah.
Okay, it paused on me for a second. So yeah, you can't really worry about, you have to worry about their feelings, but you can't really worry about, you have to get the job done. You have to get that task done, that project done. So your job as the leader or the facilitator, collaborator, is to make sure you figure out a way to do that. And it's all through open communication.
Okay. And how do you set like this communication culture as a culture in the company? So maybe we as leaders can understand this, but following up with that question, maybe we understand that, but how can we share this tool with our employees and with our teams, but not only to share the tool, but to make it happen as a culture?
It starts with you. You have to lead by example. And if that's the culture you want, then one, whoever are your direct reports, you have to be very open and transparent with them. And then you have to encourage them to do the same with their teams. And then you can skip a level or, go below their people and start engaging them and being very open. It just takes time, but it's all about walking the talk and being that example to everyone, and they will follow it.
Okay. So next question, please.
Sure. Is there any activity or method that you can tell us to improve the communication with the business partners when the communication is not very clear?
When it's not clear, you got to ask why. You've got to ask the questions. And the best thing to do when you're talking with a business partner or another business that you're collaborating with is to really understand them. And so that comes through questions. What do you mean by that? I'm hearing you say this, but is that what you mean? Can you explain that a little bit more? I'm not quite sure I understand. You have to ask questions. You can't just let it go. When there's that disconnect, the disconnect will always stay there unless someone steps up and says, hey, there's a disconnect and I really want to understand and work with you better, but I am not on the same page. I'm not understanding what you're saying. We need to talk this through a little bit more.
Okay.
Another question from Group C is what kind of consequences that you can apply if even finishing this wheel, the objective is not, the target is not completed?
I mean, it depends on, there's a lot of, that's like a loaded question. So it depends on a lot of variables, but let's say that this is the first time in this example, cleaning the floor, that they didn't do it right. You sit down with them, and at the follow-up point, that's the key point. That's when you're going to talk to them and say, hey, look, you weren't doing this right. I need you to do this. I need you to redo it. This is how you do it, whatever. And then you come back again and check on them. And if they're still not doing it right, what's the problem? Why isn't this getting done? Do you not know how to do it? Do you not want to do it? And again, it's all about treating the person with respect and fairly and communicating. And your job as a leader is to figure out the why so you don't get to the consequences. But if they turn around and just say, I don't want to do it, then you can say, well, that's your choice, but there will be a consequence, and here's what the consequence will be.
Okay. Yeah, please.
What do you think to avoid distractors in the business, like cell phones or all of that, to improve the communication and the activity and performance? The activity and performance.
So I heard cell phone distractions. I'm so sorry. Say it one more time.
Yeah, to improve, like avoid that thing, the cell phones and all distractors, to improve the communication and performance.
Well, it starts with, it goes back to a policy. If you're going to have a no cell phone policy while you're working, they have to, keep it at their desk, not have it. But a lot of people nowadays, they have it in their pocket. They keep it with them all the time. And if it vibrates, it rings, they have to answer it right away. It's like an addiction, and you have to get to it right away. So I think that's going to start with, policy procedure, what you want to set forth in a company, how much of a distraction is it, and also leading by example. So when you talk to them, make sure that you don't have your earpiece in and you're listening, or make sure that you put your cell phone down. I used to wear, earpieces and be on the phone, and people would be like, are you talking to me or are you talking on the phone?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking it out, I'm putting my phone down, and I'll turn off my phone when I'm actually talking to someone so that they know that they're the most important thing to me at that moment, and it's not a cell phone interruption. And as you lead by example, and as you continue to do that and enforce your policies and procedures, that culture will change.
Thanks. So next question.
Okay, from Group A, what can I do if a constant problem in my team is that they don't really read the instructions, even when I specify what has to be done?
So we could go back to, it could be a baby boomer, there could be a whatever generation, could be a cultural thing, but if they're not reading instructions. So I've had this example. Here's an example. So I had a manager who really didn't read all the emails that were sent out to this person. And so one day I decided to, inside the email, I put, if you're reading this email and you can respond within 20 minutes, it's $20. I'm going to buy you lunch. And they didn't respond. And then I went and talked to them and said, did you read the email? Yep, I read it. Great. What did it say? And another time I put in there another email and I said, Mary had a little lamb, fleece was white as snow, right in the middle of like a business email. Did you read it? Yeah, I read it. Really? What did it say? So you can try to have a little bit of fun to get them actively involved, and maybe reward them for reading emails and see how that goes.
Can the leader be vulnerable and confide his feelings to his team members?
Ooh, that's good. So if you are a leader, let's say you're not the owner of the company, but you're a leader and the owner gives a directive and you don't like the directive, you don't want to convey that to the people below you. You want to be able to support and relay the positive message below you. But you do want to talk to the owner and say, I don't agree with this. I'm not behind it. Is there something else we can do? And you want to try to fix that before you have to communicate it to your team. So sharing or being transparent and vulnerable to your team is okay. But in the end, you've got to think of the big picture and whatever you want for your company and wherever you're wanting to go for the long run, that's what you need to convey. So I think vulnerability and transparency is, hey, I made a bad decision, or I was supposed to get with you and I didn't. I'm so sorry. That's my fault. Things like that are good. Or maybe a personal issue you come up with, like, oh, my dog's at the vet, and I'm so sad about it. Things like that. But when it comes to a directive in the company, you got to be careful on how you express your feelings.
Okay, so next question.
Okay, how can you apply this will with another person that is at a superior level, and how to go with them and using it?
I would simply just share, hey, I went through this leadership program with Jose, and we learned about this communication wheel, and I wanted to share it with you. And I think that this is really interesting. I've never thought about it. And then here, take a look at it. Here's a copy.
Okay, so next question.
Okay, Troy, you talked about being available to others. If you are the leader of a large company, how do you organize your time to be available?
So one, you need to make sure you are available to all your direct reports at any time. And you want to make sure your direct reports is not too far spread out. So 10, 12 direct reports is probably all a person can truly to manage and be available for. Any more than that, it really gets out of your scope. So, 8 to 12 is probably optimal. Less is definitely more efficient and better. And then outside of that, you need to make sure that anytime you engage someone, whether it be 3, 4, 5 levels below you, when you talk to that person, that's all that matters. And you need to make sure that you're genuine and you care about them, because they want more of a quality time than a quantity time. So when Jose and I were talking earlier about how did I remember everyone's name in all the Goodwill stores, I wrote down the book. But when I'd go into the stores, I would talk to them. And when I was talking to those people, that's the only person I was talking to. I wasn't on the phone, emailing, doing all this other stuff. I dedicated my time and I made sure it was quality time.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, from Group B, how would you handle a leader that over communicates? For example, send unnecessary emails, set a lot of meetings, etc.
Like a meeting to plan the next meeting. That's the same thing that you've got to do. You've got to have a very open conversation with them and schedule a meeting with that leader and say, I just want to give you some feedback. I want to help you, but a lot of the other people around me have been commenting on that you over communicate. There's a lot of unnecessary emails. We have too many meetings that really don't get to the point. And I just want to help you. I really want to make sure that our department runs well, our company does well. And I just wanted to give you feedback, and maybe we could change that, or maybe I could give you, maybe you could work on making your emails more concise.
Great. So next question.
Okay, how to promote the communication with those that are not able to express their feelings and thoughts?
How to express, one more time, how to express your communication?
Can you repeat that question again, please?
How to promote the communication with those that are not able to express their feelings and thoughts?
Okay.
So kind of go back to the one-on-one stuff that we talked about with communicate or building a connection. Find common ground, get to know the person, ask a lot of questions, and allow them to feel that comfortableness. And sometimes you've got to do that by sharing and giving of yourself first. If you want respect, you've heard it said, you've got to give respect in order to get respect.
Yeah.
If you want someone to be open and transparent, sometimes you've got to be open and transparent first.
Okay. Great. So let's continue with questions. So we have still time.
Okay, a partner of other area takes commitment with task, and at the end, he didn't do it. I'm tolerant, but my partner is always irresponsible, and he requests me urgent activities for his projects. What can I do if the talk doesn't work?
All of these questions have so many variables to it. So providing you did everything right as a leader, then you've got to look at the employee and really see if they're a good fit into either your team, your organization, or your company.
Okay, how can we set up expectations without being authoritarians and let some flexibility and empowerment with the team?
So collaboration, talking to your team, a lot of times when we have a large goal or something set forth that we need to get accomplished, I like to pull everyone together. And I like to say, look, this is a goal, this is a task that we have been challenged with. And we've got to come up with a strategy, we've got to come up with a plan in order to make that goal. What do you guys think? I want to talk to this department, and what efficiencies, what could you do better? What could you contribute to this? Okay, great. This department, what could you do? Great, this department. Once you get all that, you roll it up, then you send out communication to everyone, or you have another meeting and say, I really appreciate all of your input. You guys had a lot of great ideas. And together, what I've done is outlined, put all this together, and here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to accomplish this together. Here's the expectations moving forward.
Okay, what do we do if we know that we do not have the tool? The leader has already escalated the problem, but there are no tools. How do you tell the employees that it is the company that is not giving you the resource?
Well, that's a problem. You got to have the tools to get the job done. So if you don't have the tools, you need to go back to the owner of the company and say, we need the tools to be able to get this done. If you want us to succeed, provide the right tools and allow us to get the job done.
So next question, please.
What to do if when you meet with your employees, they agree to the reports, but in reality, they do not comply, and when you confront them, they give you excuse. Deep down, you feel that they are not being honest. What has been my failure as a leader, and what is your advice for me to improve this?
I would just go back to the communication wheel and start at the beginning and ask yourself, what did I do to clearly communicate the expectations? They didn't deliver, they didn't get the results. So what did I tell them? And if you don't know and you think, oh, I did everything right, go back to them and say, what did you understand me telling you to do? Can you tell me that? And if it doesn't match up with what your expectations is, then you miss the first step, clearly communicating. And that's where a lot of people miss it. And then just kind of go through that wheel and check each box to make sure that as a leader, you set that person up for success to get the job accomplished.
Okay, so next question.
How can I open a a communication channel with a manager that is very close to listen new ideas, because he knows or he believes that he knows what you want to say?
So they're not actively listening to you or don't really care about you. I think that those are the harder conversations to have. Anytime you're talking to a leader above you, managing up is a lot harder than managing down. But just going back to the difficult conversation that we had earlier in the two sessions ago, I think that's what you need to do. You need to have a difficult conversation with the leader, make sure you're prepared, make sure you know what type of responses they're going to say, make sure you have a rebuttal, practice role play with people ahead of time, maybe even get a couple people to help you with that conversation. But it needs to happen because sometimes people don't really see themselves in the mirror when they look in the mirror, if you know what I mean. And someone has to share that with them in a nice way.
Okay, so there are a lot of questions and we are going to continue with them. So next question.
Okay, so how can you handle a situation where the employees don't respect the leader and they do what they want? Of course, one employees work more than the others, and that represents in a difficult employment environment.
So I think that the most common thing that I have seen in that situation that you're describing or asking is that that particular manager or leader is too close or too much of a friend and is unable to hold people accountable on their team. They don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. You know, they're more of a people pleaser, which they might not be in the right role. If they're not holding people accountable, setting expectations, doing follow-up, then they've let all of that get out of control. So I would go to the leader and say, what have you communicated? And that you probably need to set another meeting with that team and someone else be present and kind of show that leader, hey, this is the way we need to do it. This is what we need, how we need to execute this. And here's our expectations. Here's what we're going to do to hold people accountable, and teach that leader. If they're unable to get it, then you've got the wrong person in the wrong position.
Okay, so next question, please.
How can you work in the communication with people where the only inconvenience is their attitude?
And I would ask yourself, do they feel like you really care about them? Do they feel like you're genuine? And how can you bridge that gap? Because it's either they don't care about you, they don't care about the company, they don't care about the job. You got to figure out what it is. But as a leader, you first need to make sure that you come across very genuine and you really care and say, I've noticed that every time I talk to you, you just don't seem to be engaged. You don't seem to, at least from my perspective, care what I'm saying about. And I just want you to know that I do care about you. I want to see you succeed in this organization, and I want to help you reach your goals, but you've got to work with me. Somehow you've got to manage that and build a connection there.
Okay, so another question, please.
How can you handle a situation where there is a discrimination problem?
Well, discrimination problem, you want to get typically going to get your HR department involved in that and let them handle that, because you want kind of a third party or a neutral party investigating, any discriminatory acts. If you don't have an HR department, then you've got to play that role and you got to investigate. So depending on what the discrimination is, whether it's, sex, race, who knows, you've got to kind of play the HR role and make sure you find out what the discriminatory issues are, and then address it and let them know that this is totally unacceptable and it will not be tolerated, and just kind of lay out the policies and rules on that.
And when should we terminate that person? At what moment? Does it depend on the policy, or does it depend on?
Yeah, it depends on the policy. That's a really good question as well. So it depends on the policy. It depends on the situation. So
Okay.
let's take a common one of sexual harassment.
Yeah.
So sexual harassment, someone came to you and said, I was sexually harassed. Okay, what happened? They made a comment to me. Okay, did you tell them to stop it? Did you tell them to knock it off? Did you tell them you don't appreciate that? You don't want to hear it? No. Okay, I'll address it. Let me know if it happens again. Next time, tell them not to do it. Or sexual harassment, to go to an extreme, let's say that person physically did something to somebody else, totally inappropriate. Well, that could result in immediate termination.
Okay.
So it depends on the variation of, what the harassment is.
Okay. Yeah, very good question for me. It was my question. I mean, I follow up with that question that I was curious about. So yeah, next question, please, Ale.
Okay, if you are working in a company that it seems there is no leadership, and then you start working as a leader to make the company have success, but there is no one to listen to you, what do you recommend? Should we abandon the company, or is there some advice?
So one, if you're that person that has leadership and people are starting to gravitate towards you and they're listening to you, great. That's fantastic. But if there is not a leader, the owner, the entrepreneur, the CEO isn't really leading the company, that's ultimately a big problem, because people are going to follow the leader and they're going to follow a mission. They're going to follow a culture. And if you don't have the right leader in the right place, they're not going to follow them. So eventually it'll just crumble, even though you might have all the fantastic leadership skills and abilities. If it's not coming from, the top person down, then eventually it's going to catch up and not work. And you're going to have people jumping ship and going to other companies.
Okay. So we still have 5 minutes and we can continue with the questions.
Okay, what if your team member just does not want to connect and is not interested in building team, but complies with the job?
Some people are like that, and that's okay. Some people are very, very private and they really don't want to connect. So you just have to connect with them where they're at, and you got to make sure you understand them as an individual. I've known some people that are extremely private at work, and I've tried to open up to them, tried to be the example and share a couple things and be a little bit transparent, and they're just like, okay, that's nice, yes. And they don't reciprocate. They don't share. They don't do anything, but they get the job done. So I meet them there. I find a common ground, and I just stay in that common ground with that person.
Like this technology department, who generally they are more like closed in terms of communication. They are more shy. They have different characteristics, and then you have this marketing team, who are always, like happy and like around the office. What do you do when you want to create a team that has this communication among all the areas? If they have these different profiles, not only cultures that we talked about that yesterday, but also these different professions and activities in their daily activity.
Well, you said earlier you like weekly meetings, and I would suggest getting one person out of each department all together for a meeting.
Okay.
And just say, what's new? What's happening in your department? And then see if the other departments can help, or see if that department can help any other departments. So I've done this, in my tenure before, and we organize it and we get different departments together, and then we start learning, and we realize that one department may be trying to do something and trying to navigate towards something that all the other departments are like, what? This is crazy. Why are you doing that? And when we have that conversation, they realize that that's a wasted effort, and we refocus. But then when you get that synergy and you get everyone saying, hey, I'm in HR, I'm in LP, I'm in IT, I'm in marketing, and how can I help you? Is there anything that our department can do to make your department better? Can we help you out with anything? that's phenomenal. And I think that would be a great place to start.
Okay. So we still have time for another question.
Okay. What to do when you know that in your company the gossip is common?
The gossip is coming from who?
Common, like a common thing.
It's common.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Yes.
gossip is if people are going to talk, but I think that goes back to what you have in place with your policies, your regulations, things like that. And if you have, no slander, no gossip, no nothing, then you can enforce that. And usually gossip starts from one or two people. It doesn't start with everybody. And so it's kind of like an investigation game. You got to figure out who said what and work it all the way back to the person with the biggest mouth that speaks the most and has no filter. And usually that's the problem.
Time for one last question.
Okay, how to apply this communication will in the home office? To follow-up meetings, or what other way do you recommend?
Just to get it started within your organization, I would just have a meeting and say, hey, talk to all your leaders and say, this is something that I want you guys to work with. Talk to them about, the first thing. Let's talk about clearly communicating our expectations. And I would challenge everyone on your team, the leaders on your team, say, I need you to give me an instruction on how to do something. I don't know if you guys have, like if we were in person, I don't know if you guys know peanut butter and jelly sandwich, for example.
Yes, we do.
So you've probably seen this example, but you get a loaf of bread, brand new, unopened, and you get a jar of peanut butter, a jar of jelly, and a knife.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, all right, tell me how to make a peanut butter sandwich, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I'll take a piece of bread. All right, they didn't tell me to open it. They didn't tell me to undo the twist tie. So I would just take the bread and rip into it and grab two pieces out of the center. And everyone would be laughing and going, no, that's not right. And then say, take some jelly and spread it on the bread. And I just spread it. I mean, ask them to give you instruction and you will be amazed at how clearly they're communicating or not.
So let's say we're going to finish this ninth module about communication will. And now we have 15 minutes to talk about conclusions for all the things that we saw during these 3 days. So I'm going to start, with a recap of the first module that we went through. And I'm gonna, just bring some ideas and some things. And also, Troy, I would like you to throw some ideas as well to the table. So first, in the first day, we talk about preparation to the international leadership. And that was a topic that I explained to the leaders. And here, the most important thing that I think that I show to the people, it's about the influence that a leader has, right? So we are leaders. We are international leaders now because we are finishing this program. And the most important value and the most important skill and the most important ability that we need to develop, it's this influence skill that we must have every single day. And to get advantage of that influence skill that we have, because we are talking about international leadership, but it's not only international. We talk about this. We talk about international, intercultural, intergenerational, so it's like leadership talking about like in a general term, so we are having in our companies, in our groups, people from all over the world, from all different cultures, different preferences, different parts of like families and values, and they want different things and different motivators. So talking about international leadership, we are talking about being able to influence the person or the group that we are leading to achieve that goal, and also to have them and to see them as humans. Remember this that we talk about. We also saw this diagram of the CRE, that is a conscious leadership, a resilient leadership, and then an efficient leadership. We want leaders that obviously create results and that achieve their goals and that they lead their teams to obviously to complete these tasks I don't know, as supervisors, managers, or I mean, just like humans, right? And then the last thing that I talk about this is about these 3 questions that we need to ask for ourselves. The first question is, who am I? Like being reflective, and to reflect to ourselves, who am I? The second question is, where am I going? To have this goal in life, not only as leaders, but also in the company, in our families, in different scopes of life. And the third question is, with whom, right? I mean, and that's the part of the team, and that's the part of all the parts of, I don't know, like all the little parts that we saw here that complements the international leadership, but it goes everything to the person and the responsible of being leaders to influence others to achieve specific goals. So I don't know what can you add on this, Troy, please, on the first topic.
I will give you 2 thumbs up. Nicely done.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And then I'm gonna continue with the program because I want to go through the whole program that we saw just to have these conclusions. When we talk about adaptation to change as a company culture, what can you say, Troy, about this to conclude?
I think that as far as, you've got to continually change. You got to continue to look for ways to get better, and you got to adapt to ever-changing, post-pandemic, pandemic, technology. So if you're not growing, then you're dying.
Yeah. And also remember when we talk about the habits and resistance and all this mindset, right? And what can be a final, in this topic, what can be a final message for leaders talking about, the challenges that we live, like working with teams and working with people and working with companies, these challenges that we have when we're talking about culture within the companies?
I think the biggest challenge is you've got to get your mindset on what you want the culture to be. And then once you do it, you've got to stand behind it and not change, not deviate. Remember that consistency compounds.
Okay, great. And with this, I think one very important homework for all the leaders that saw this program and that took these different modules is to go and create your culture manual. Some of you may have it, some of you don't. So this is the homework. We are not going to supervise this homework, but you must have this culture manual that you can start today. And Troy explained very good all the things that are supposed to be in this manual or in these documents, and we need to start with this. So if we were supposed to give them maybe 1, 2, 3 steps to start the manuals of the culture, how can we start with this, Troy, today?
When you're looking at creating culture within the organization, 1, keep it simple.
Okay.
Don't overcomplicate it. Get a message that's going to be easy for everyone to remember. Don't have 30 things that is going to be your culture. Keep it 3 to 5, 3 to 7. Keep it small and make it focused, make it impactful, and then make it so that it's going to take your company to where you want it to go. If you want your company to grow, then you need to have something in your culture about growth. If you want your company to continue to improve and expand and get better, then you need something about, improvement and a culture that will be open to sharing ideas and innovation and things like that.
Okay. And in the third module, the first day, we talk about leadership post-COVID and resilience. And I talk about, the importance of being resilient leaders because we are going to be struggling with all these things. And as you just said, it's not only the pandemic thing, it's every single day issues, right? So we're going to have to face different challenges, different things. This was like a natural thing that happened somehow with the pandemic, but then it's going to happen different things, so we need to be prepared for this. So when I explain this capacity of the human being for being able to confront the adversities of every single day life, then we are talking about resilience. And we need to be resilient leaders, and we need to understand that leadership has changed. And it was, for sure, in my perspective, it was a different leadership before pandemic. And right now, I mean, in my personal case, and this is one of the reasons why we created this program, because leadership is changing every day. But with this pandemic, everything was like in one day, everything changed, So we had to close the in-person companies and a lot of things. So everything changed, and we saw these three different roles or three different profiles of leaders or styles. So we saw this autocratic leader that is always, like giving these commands to people. That's the first one. And sometimes it works when something urgent is happening in the company. Then we saw the democratic leadership, so this is more like working with the team and meeting and asking for opinions for everything. And then we saw this third style of leadership, that is laissez-faire, that is just let them do what they have to do. So we saw that it's this adaptive leadership and this also situational leadership. So after COVID, we need to understand that there is no like this perfect definition of leadership. There is no like this perfect leadership style. So we need to be so adaptive, and we need to be so situational in that concept. And we need to understand that leadership is always changing and changing and changing. So I don't know, Troy, in your experience, how has leadership changed with COVID?
It's changed a lot. And I think it's about building a connection a lot quicker because you're doing a lot of things virtually. So how do you keep track of productivity? How do you make sure that people are engaged in culture? How do they make sure that they feel a belonging? We talked about, you spend 2/3 of your time at work. How do you make sure that they are part of your family and they feel connected and everything? And it's just dynamically changed. So that's kind of the new role of the leadership, is to fix and solve those answers.
Okay, yeah. So that was the first day. So we went through these three topics, and then in the second day we started with talent acquisition and retention. So we started to talk about this struggle that we have with finding positions, with finding the candidates for the positions. Like every single day we need to be looking for candidates, posting this vacant position that we have. So it is a challenge for leaders, and we talk about the importance of hiring process. This is something that we talked about yesterday, about developing our leadership skills every single day. This is one very important, like representation of developing yourself, of, like learning new skills of leadership, and also the importance of that culture fit, right? So people may have the skills, may have the abilities, may have, like a lot of things in their brains. But if they don't have that in the culture fit, in the behavioral conversation that we talked about yesterday in the interviews, then we are not going to have the culture that we want to promote. And I want to highlight on this something very important that you said, and I'm going to remember forever, that people don't leave their jobs because of the salary, because of the culture, I mean, in general terms, because of the conditions, because of the facilities. I don't know, maybe they can. But the number one reason why people leave their jobs is their boss, right? So that's something very important that you just said. And we need to be proactive. We need to be proactive, and we need to understand that we are gonna be recruiting all the time. And it's not only on our 8-hour job, it's every single day. And if we are leaders and we go to a restaurant and there's a waiter who is having this perfect service, then should that person work in my company? What if I ask that person if he or she wants to come to my company, right? So this is something that I enjoy a lot, this conversation with you about talent acquisition and retention. And I don't know, Troy, if you want to add something on this.
I think the points you made were really good. I think the one thing for people to remember too is, as you go through the interview process, that's extremely important. And you really need to unpack and figure out who you're hiring and make sure they have the right person for the right job. And when you go through the interview process, remember I was talking the other day about, you can't just ask someone, are you honest? I need someone who's honest. Are you honest? You've got to make a list of the characteristic attributes, things you want, and then formulate questions around that, and then dig deep. And an interview should be more of a conversation, and it should be follow-up questions. Oh, really? What happened then? Okay, great. Well, tell me about that. And then what? So you just keep them talking. They should be talking 80-90% of the time. You should be talking 10-20% of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we need to understand that the interview is to know the candidate, right? So we want to know what happened with him, not with me, right? Because sometimes, and that has happened to me as well, like I want to talk, and I want to, oh, welcome to this company. Do you know about the position? Do you know about the salary? And I mean, and when I realize it's already 10 minutes, so I need to understand that it's about knowing the candidate, knowing that person who is going to get into the company. And that's the candidate is the most important person in the conversation when you are interviewing someone, because it's the starting point of everything in the culture, in the hiring process, right? So you just said this yesterday. And then the second topic that we saw yesterday is good decision making. So I mean, I'm gonna leave you start first with this conclusions about good decision making. This was yesterday's second topic.
Sure. Good decisions start as soon as you open your eyes in the morning. And it's, what type of attitude am I going to have? What are my priorities? What's my faith going to look like? And we talked a lot about your thoughts, right? Because your thoughts become your beliefs become your actions, and your actions produce results. So really take captive of your thoughts, making sure that you hold them captive to what you want to focus on, not having stinking thinking. And the more that you can make good decisions early on in the day, the easier it is going to be to make the bigger decisions later on in the day with your business.
And also you said about this, not making emotional decisions, right? To make informed decisions. And that's something that obviously, I mean, we are humans, and I've been talking about this the 3 days. That we can have like this, and also this is a theory about this emotional brain, right? That makes us, like to react immediately to some specific situation. So we are, I don't know, if we are mad, if we are angry, then we are gonna decide something that may cause very bad consequences to the company and to our positions, right? So after that, we went to the last topic that we saw yesterday. It was teamwork in multicultural teams. And this was very, very interesting for me because we talk about ethnicities, generations, nationalities, cultures, sexual orientations. So it's about everything, right? That's how I defined it yesterday. And it's also very important to understand that all leaders, we struggle with diversity, right? I mean, this is something normal. This is in the US. Troy told us how they manage these situations in Mexico and the other 10 countries, because we are 12 countries. So in the other 10 countries, it's normal to struggle with time. With diversity, right? So also another thing very important is that people are your greatest asset. This is very, very important, as you just said, to earn the respect from people. That was something that it was my note, and it was something that I really, it got me very, deeply, because it's not about asking for respect because I'm the boss. It's because you need to understand that the respect needs to be earned, right? And also the benefits that can bring to the company and to our team if we work with these multicultural teams. That is more ideas. You can have a better perspective, better visions, viewpoints, and we can diversify. Like the company in different viewpoints, as I just said. And also something that I find very relevant is that we need to have an unified culture with diverse perspectives and visions, right? So what else can you add on this? This was the final topic that we saw yesterday.
It's everything. I love that. No, you summed it up really nice. I don't have anything to add on that one.
Okay. I was just checking my notes because they are really, I learned a lot with this program with you. And then today, it was the first topic that we started to talk about. It was difficult conversations. And I'm going to let you please to give us some conclusions about this difficult conversations topic that we saw today.
So one, don't wait, deal with them, be prepared. Make sure you go into the difficult conversations, knowing the person, knowing the rebuttals, knowing what type of thing, even role play it with somebody else. Make sure you go in with some notes, bullet point notes, so you don't get derailed, so they don't get you off track.
Mhm.
And then when you get into the difficult conversations, make sure to stay humble, make sure to stay respectful, make sure that you focus on listening to what they're saying, make sure you come up with a solution together, really try to understand them and show some empathy.
Mhm.
And then the important thing afterwards is to document and to follow up and
Mhm.
keep that person engaged and moving forward in a positive direction.
Yeah. And then today we saw this, it was a very interesting, this panel with the leaders that got into the call about use of technology post-COVID, right? So we talk about 5 different topics. We went through home office and we went to a little bit about managed productivity, talking about these scorecards and reports. Then we saw virtual hiring and interviewing, the importance of using technology to do this process. Then virtual engagement and motivation is possible, right? And we need to gather our teams, even if it's in a virtual way. And for sure, tools and equipment for virtual work. So what else can we conclude about this? I mean, this was today, so I already did the conclusions, but what else can we add on this?
I think it was great that we had the 5 different panelists on as well, and just hearing what they said really resonated. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of differences between, America and Mexico with all this post-pandemic stuff that we're struggling with. I think the issues are real, and I think that we're all just trying to search for a better way to do things. So I appreciated everyone's comments, and I think that was very interesting to me.
Yeah, to me too. And then finally, we saw this communication wheel. I mean, it is so simple, but so important. If all leaders apply this tool within their teams and their companies, that will be amazing, right? Because everyone is going to understand what is, like what we try to explain to our team. So we need to give them the tools. We need to give them, and to receive this feedback and to understand that they have to have the skills, no excuses. So what else about communication will to conclude with this?
Just follow it. I mean, that's what I would recommend. And it all starts with clearly communicating your expectations. We've talked, I think, through this whole program that influence and communication are probably the 2 most important things that you can really hone in on to become a better leader, and making a connection with the people and making sure that they feel valued and they are the greatest asset.
Yeah.
So focus on the communication, make sure that it's effective and clearly communicated.
Yeah, so now we are on time, and these conclusions, they were super useful, and I hope all leaders find this important for them and with value, because I want you all to join me to see this message, because we are almost on time to finish our program. I don't want to leave. I'm going to stay here, I want to stay here. And I'm going to introduce to you Carlos Villaseñor, who is president of Coparmex Jalisco. I'm very thankful about being a partner with Coparmex Jalisco, and he has this message to share with all of you.
Agradecemos a la Embajada de los Estados Unidos a José Luis Reyes, a Culver.
So we have technology problems again. So just let me know if we have the message ready to share with all of the leaders, because we want to be very respectful with your time, and we are on almost on time. We still have 3 minutes. So if the message is ready, that will be good. Okay, yeah, so we have the message for you. Do we? Okay, we don't have the message for you. I'm just gonna give you this fine. Yeah, we are ready. Okay, we are ready to go to this message from Carlos Villaseñor, president of Coparmex Jalisco.
Agradecemos a la Embajada de los Estados Unidos, a José Luis Reyes, a Troy Culver y al gran equipo Coparmex. Hoy culminamos un proceso de capacitación, de aprendizaje, de seguirnos preparando para seguir o guiando ese talento. Hoy no solo aprenden los que cursaron el curso, sino también los capacitadores se enriquecen de este tipo de dinámicas. Impulsar el talento no solo en los negocios, sino también en la sociedad, en la cultura, en el deporte, nos hace mejores como sociedad. Sin duda, este es el mejor igualador, la educación, la capacitación. Hoy esperamos poder tener más alianzas como esta, donde incentiven el aprendizaje. La distancia ya no es un impedimento, estamos a una pantalla. Con la tecnología nunca podemos decir que no se puede. Les deseo que hayan culminado, se hayan divertido, no solo aprendido. Nunca pierdan la capacidad de asombro, nunca pierdan ese apetito de ser mejores.
We're back. So I'm going to switch to Spanish to say thank you. Muchísimas gracias a todos los líderes. Voy a dar algunos avisos finales antes que se desconecten porque nos queda un minuto. Agradeciendo muchísimo, por supuesto, y quiero empezar con todos estos agradecimientos porque son muy importantes para todos nosotros. Agradecer a nombre de la Embajada de Estados Unidos en México su participación y yo personalmente agradecerles de todo corazón por este apoyo de esta locura que quisimos hacer con toda esta tecnología y con todo esto para poder llegar a tantos líderes como lo hicimos en esta sesión. Agradecer al Consulado General de Estados Unidos en Guadalajara, agradecer también a Coparmex Jalisco, de verdad muchísimas gracias al presidente y a todo el equipo que ha estado presente. Y por supuesto felicitar a todos los líderes porque estuvimos conectados durante estos días, 12 países. Estuvimos personas de México, de Venezuela, de Estados Unidos, de Argentina, de Costa Rica, de Ecuador. Estuvieron también personas de Nicaragua, de Paraguay, de Guatemala, de Alemania y de Haití y El Salvador también, que también tenemos ahí una persona presente. Muchísimas gracias y con eso también, pues obviamente, como ya lo dije, quiero hacerle a título personal, agradecer al presidente de Coparmex Jalisco, al presidente Carlos Villaseñor, de parte de la Embajada de Estados Unidos en México, que sé que han estado presentes durante estas sesiones viendo todo lo que estamos transmitiendo, a Winnie Hofstetter, quien es de la Public Affairs Section, agregada adjunta de Asuntos Culturales de la Embajada de Estados Unidos en México. Muchísimas gracias, Winnie, por todo tu apoyo. Agradecer a Miguel Ángel Vázquez, porque él es el que está ahí como, ándale, José Luis, tú échate este programa y vamos haciendo esto en conjunto. Cuando le conté que teníamos esta idea, dijo, va, y si no hubiera sido por ti, Miguel, que sé que también has estado aquí conectado, pues esto no sería posible y todos los líderes no estarían recibiendo este mensaje y este contenido. Agradecer de parte del Consulado General de Estados Unidos en Guadalajara, a la Cónsul General Eliza Alaham, que sabemos que nos dio un mensaje de arranque, un mensaje inicial. Y quiero agradecer también a la cónsul Brittany Thompson, que ella es cónsul de prensa y cultura de la sección de Asuntos Públicos del Consulado General de Estados Unidos en Guadalajara. Muchísimas gracias también a Brittany Thompson. Agradecer también personalmente a Marilena Saucedo, quien es Cultural Affairs Specialist. Muchísimas gracias, Marilena, por confiar y por creer y por apoyar. Y a Gustavo Rayas, quien es el Social Media Manager, por supuesto que sin él, pues no se hubieran enterado muchos de ustedes que se enteraron a través de las páginas del Consulado General de Estados Unidos en Guadalajara. Agradecer a estas super instalaciones que nos facilitó IOS Offices y personalmente a Francisco Gutiérrez, quien es coordinador comercial y de operaciones de la comunidad IOS Offices en Guadalajara. De verdad, muchísimas gracias. Agradecer, y con eso también ir concluyendo, agradecer al staff que estuvo aquí. Muchísimas gracias. Muy bien, agradecer a Maru, que ya está en la siguiente sala, porque ella nos estuvo aquí haciendo toda la interpretación y todo lo que hemos estado aprendiendo en diferentes idiomas, y de verdad eso está muy, muy, muy interesante. Y con esto, pues también ir concluyendo y repetirles y explicarles, ahorita les van a volver a mandar el link a través de sus WhatsApp. Tenemos la prepresentación o el prelanzamiento de evento del libro de José Luis Reyes, o sea, mío, el 16 de diciembre de 4:30 a 7:30 con la intervención de Marisa Lazo, Shark en Shark Tank México. Y el 13 de enero tenemos una sesión de seguimiento de 4 a 6. Hoy tienen que entregar su última evaluación. Bueno, hoy y a más tardar mañana a las 4 de la tarde tienen que contestar su evaluación para poder estar todavía al día con esta acreditación para que saquen este 90 sobre 100. También quiero agradecer profundamente, y aquí me voy a volver a conectar, agradecer muchísimo a Troy Colbert. Troy, thank you very much for being here. We are super happy because we had you during these 3 days. It is a lot of knowledge, a lot of things that we learned from you. So thank you very much. We appreciate your support, your patience. I know, like everything. So I don't know if you want to say something just to close this program.
Sure. Gracias to everyone. So it was a great honor and a joy for me to be part of this. Jose and your team and everyone else and the embassy, thank you very much. You guys are awesome. And what's exciting to me is that everyone's hungry to grow and to get better. That's exciting. I love to see the passion in everyone, and I would encourage everyone to do that each day. Figure out, what can I do to get better day by day? And it'll just transform your lives. So again, thank you so much. It was an honor and a pleasure, and I love this program.
Thank you so much, Troy. And we want to see you more here in Mexico. And some of you know, because I told the leaders and the staff here, Troy is coming to Mexico in February. So maybe we're going to be doing something with him. We are going to go to a program in Puerto Vallarta. So, I mean, like, there's going to be a lot of things to learn and to create with him. So please follow up with this. As I told you, ya no sé por qué sigo hablando en inglés. Bueno, es que aquí está Troy. Okay. So thank you very much for being here. I'm going to close this program saying thank you to all the leaders. Thank you to the embassy, to the consulate. Thank you, Troy. Thank you, the staff. Thank you to the live. Thank you for all the things that we learned during these 3 days. It was a great program, and we want to keep in touch with all of you. So we are finishing this program, and thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.